Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. First episode of the NBA season. And man, what a day to get the season show underway. Hi, I'm Ken Moore. Welcome to K Moore Sports, Houston Rockets edition of the show tonight. And the Rockets pull the trigger. They send James Harden, the Beard, to Brooklyn. And we'll break it down next. What does it mean for the future of the Houston Rockets organization? Did they get enough in the package for James Harden? And how much of a role did Tillman Fertitta play in this deal going down? We'll talk about it all next on K Moore Sports Houston Rockets edition. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Tonight, we talk about the big trade that went down this afternoon. James Harden finally forces his way out of Houston. It only took 9 games of the regular season and a 3-6 record and a pitiful performance last night against the LA Lakers for Rafael Stone and Steven Silas and Tillman Fertitta to finally say, enough is enough, and they send James Harden out to the Brooklyn Nets for a multitude of picks and a multitude of players in return. So before we get started tonight, just some housekeeping duties. If you guys will hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the comment button, get your comments in the comment section, and we'll talk about this trade here tonight. So first and foremost, my thoughts on the Houston Rockets. This has been an organization that has been probably the best run organization in the city of Houston from at least 1980 on. This is a team that has consistently competed for championships, competed at a high level, and very rarely have they been at the bottom of the NBA standings. The last time that happened, if my recollection is correct, was in 1982 after Moses Malone left after his MVP season in 1981, in which he took the Rockets to the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics. The Rockets quickly became one of the bottom teams in the NBA, but that did not last for very long, only 2 years, in fact, as they were able to get back-to-back number 1 picks with Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson. So this has been a proud organization for the better part of the last 40 years. One of the top 6 or 7 teams in the NBA during that time, believe it or not. Of course, you have the Celtics and the Lakers. You had the Chicago Bulls run during Michael Jordan. You had the bad boy Pistons for a while. Of course, you had the long 20-year dynasty of the San Antonio Spurs. And most recently, the Golden State Warriors. But right behind those core franchises have been the Houston Rockets, that have always done the best for the fans and for the city. And I felt that way, and I felt that would continue whether we kept or lost James Harden up until what transpired today. Now, like you, like many, a lot of people were ready to see James Harden leave after the way he conducted himself coming into this season and the type of performances he put up over the last week or so. I was also ready to see James Harden move on to go somewhere where he could possibly compete for a championship and end his career. Now, I don't know what the friction was between Harden and the organization. Was it something between him and the owner? Did he not like the way things had gone on over the summer in the bubble? Not exactly sure what Harden's motivations were. But what I can say is that if it's on the court related, it's hard to sympathize with Harden because he got everything he wanted from the Rockets in the way of teammates. Now, when Tillman Fertitta took over, he did tighten the purse strings somewhat. He did not allow Daryl Morey as much flexibility with the salary cap to do other things with the roster that may have gotten the Rockets over the top against Golden State. We don't really know. But we know that the Rockets for a while had the second best team in the NBA, only behind the Golden State Warriors. So then comes today. The Rockets finally decide they're going to pull the trigger. And for about an hour or so, while the rumors were going around as to what the Rockets would receive in compensation, I was actually pretty happy when the first report came out that the Rockets were going to receive Caris LeVert from the Brooklyn Nets as part of the deal. Because I envisioned Caris LeVert almost like a young James Harden 8 years ago. Young, hungry basketball player, a lot of skill, a lot of talent that's played behind some guys, and he really hasn't had an opportunity to flourish and have his own ball club. So I was really excited when the first report came that the Rockets would be receiving Caris LeVert in this package. Then it turned out that Caris LeVert was not coming in this package. Neither was Jarrett Allen. It was, excuse me, it was going to be Victor Oladipo, a couple of bench players, and a bunch of draft picks. So it took me some time to kind of step back and evaluate that. And I had to do some digging and find out, okay, who are these draft picks from? Where could they possibly be in the draft? And then also, who are these players besides Victor Oladipo? And what is the status of their contracts? All of those things are very important when you break down this trade. You can't just look at the name on the back of the jersey and say, oh, we're getting this guy. He used to be a former All-Star. He's a pretty good player. He can just slide into James Harden's role. You have to look deeper when it comes to these type of trades to really figure out the motivation behind the trade. Is it a trade to make the product on the floor better? Or is it a trade to make the financials of the organization better? And I think once we break down this trade, you'll find out what the driving force behind this deal was outside of James Harden really wanting to get out of town. Now, I don't want to cast blame on the new general manager, Raphael Stone, or the new head coach, Stephen Silas, because I think they are only being allowed to do what they can do when it comes to this trade. They have to go by the beat of the owner, Tillman Fertitta, and what he allows them to do. So what we're going to do, we're going to break down all aspects of this trade. James Harden going to the Brooklyn Nets, what it means for the Rockets, what it means for Brooklyn, and what it means for the future of this organization. So first and foremost, we're going to look at the picks that the Rockets got in this deal. And the Rockets got a lot of picks. The Rockets got a lot of picks in this deal, and hopefully those picks will turn out to be something. But once we look at them in detail, I think you're going to be shocked to find out the real true value of these picks. So we're going to bring those on the board now. Here's what the Rockets got for James Harden today on the pick side of things. So you get 4 first-round picks unprotected, 2 picks in 2022, a pick in 2024, and then also a pick in 2026. But look at who those picks are from. The first pick in 2022, that's from Cleveland, which you think is, oh, great, Cleveland's a terrible team. That's going to be a top 5 pick potentially. But that is Cleveland via Milwaukee. That's a pick that Cleveland got from Milwaukee in a previous deal. So that's actually Milwaukee's pick that we're going to get. And you know what? Milwaukee's a pretty good basketball team. They're probably one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the NBA, and they will be that way in 2022. So that pick will be near the bottom of the first round in 2022. The Brooklyn pick in 2022, where they still got James Harden, they'll still have Kevin Durant, they'll still have Kyrie Irving, maybe not. But they're still going to be a top 4 or 5 team in the NBA in 2022. So that's another pick that's going to be at the bottom of the first round. So the first time that the Rockets can maybe get a legitimate pick close to the middle of the first round, assuming James Harden and assuming Kevin Durant are maybe gone or retired from Brooklyn by 2024, that will be the first year that the Rockets can really see some fruit from this particular trade when it comes to draft picks, because those 2022 picks are really not going to be worth much because they're going to be at the bottom of the first round. So miss me with the picks being a critical component of this deal. If it was truly a Cleveland pick, then yes, that would be valuable. But it's a Cleveland pick from Milwaukee, and that makes it much less valuable. Now let's also look at the pick swaps. Those are also from Brooklyn. Those are also unprotected. But again, when you look at these pick swaps this year, 23, 25, 27, the Rockets are likely to have a worse record than Brooklyn, at least through the first 2 years in 2021 and 2023. So those swaps likely won't even occur because the Rockets will have a worse record than Brooklyn. So those swaps won't even really matter to this team. So don't let the picks and the pick swaps make this look like a great deal for the Houston Rockets, because they're not. Now, let's go in and let's take a look at the players that the Rockets get out of this deal. Victor Oladipo is the first player. And then here are the remaining players that the Rockets will get in this deal. Dante Exum, and also a role player for Brooklyn in Kirkus that many of you and neither of I had heard of until today. But from what I understand, he's a pretty decent role player off the bench. But here's the key component of this deal. All of these 3 guys, their contracts expire at the end of this season. These contracts expire at the end of this season. So what does that mean? The Rockets have basically acquired $32 million in expiring contracts. So these players can walk at the end of the season, which will free up money under the cap for Tillman Fertitta and the organization, because they don't have to replace these guys with $32 million worth of salary. They can replace these guys with minimum contract guys or mid-exception type players. But Victor Oladipo, he makes $21 million. Dante Exum, who's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks with an injury, makes $9.1 million, and Kirkus, the lowest paid, makes $1.8 million. So $32 million in expiring contracts is what the Rockets get off of this deal. So the Rockets did not get the best players available in this deal, but they got the best contracts that they could get off of after this season. So essentially what the Rockets have done is traded James Harden for potentially $32 million in cap space and 4 first-round picks. 2 of them are pretty much guaranteed to be at the bottom of the first round. So this trade, when you actually deep dive into the details of it, does not look as good on the surface as you may have thought when you first heard it this afternoon. Now, what we also want to do is look at Victor Oladipo, because Victor Oladipo is a good basketball player. He's come off some injuries that he's had in the past few years. He had a very significant injury a couple of seasons ago. Last year in the bubble, he really wasn't able to go full force. But when you look at his numbers, this is a guy that averages 20 points a game. He averages over 5.5 rebounds per game and 4 assists per ball game. So he is a good basketball player. He is a good shooting guard. But again, he's a guy coming off a major injury, just like John Wall, just like DeMarcus Cousins, and you don't know if you want to invest a long-term contract in him because he's going to be looking for $30 million, $35 million a year, likely at the end of the season. Right now, he's making $21 million. So how long you have Victor Oladipo in Houston, who knows? We don't know. But from the looks of it, Victor Oladipo will likely only be here through the end of the season. Now, also what we want to look at is who the Rockets passed up in this deal, because I think that is very significant, who they passed up in this deal. And we're going to take a look at those guys, because I think you will find it very shocking, the production and what the Rockets had a chance to get that I think would have made them very good on the basketball court immediately compared to what they actually got and not on the basketball court immediately. This is what the Rockets passed up. Jared Allen and Karis LeVert. These are 2 guys that the Rockets could have gotten directly from Brooklyn without going through a middleman, without going through Indiana, without going through Cleveland. They could have dropped these guys right into their lineup without any hesitation. Karis LeVert on the right, excellent swing player, 2-way player, good defensively, good offensively, averages 18.5 points per game, over 4 rebounds and 6 assists a game. And he does that in 26 minutes off the bench. Sounds a lot like James Harden in Oklahoma City back in 2012. And he's only 26 years old. Victor Oladipo is 29 years old, and the production that he puts up in 33 minutes per game. So imagine Karis LeVert with the numbers you see at the bottom of the screen, increase his minutes from 26 minutes coming off the bench to around 32, 33 minutes as a starter. And you see how he would have fit perfectly into this Rockets lineup. Then you look at Jared Allen from the University of Texas. Excellent defensive player. Averages a double-double. Averages 11 points, 10 rebounds, over a block and a half per ball game on the season. This is another guy that would have put in fit in seamlessly with the Rockets. But the problem is they have contracts that do not expire at the end of the season. Karis LeVert has 2 years left on his deal. I believe Jared Allen has 1 year left on his rookie contract. So he's going to be looking for a big contract in the next couple of seasons. But imagine a lineup where you could have had Jared Allen next to Christian Wood in the front court, moving PJ Tucker to the bench. You have LeVert at the 3, along with Eric Gordon and John Wall in your backcourt. You have a very, very good basketball team. You still have one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the Western Conference with John Wall, Eric Gordon, Karis LeVert, and then you got a good defensive player up front in Jared Allen, much better, much younger than PJ Tucker. And then you got a great guy like Christian Wood, who the Rockets did an excellent job of picking up in the offseason. Put those 5 guys together, pay the salaries of those guys, and you have a very good Houston Rockets basketball team. But what we're left with, I'll show you here in a moment. So instead of having LeVert and Jared Allen dropped into our starting lineup, we're going to pull up here in just a moment what our actual starting lineup is going to look like now for the remainder of the season, unless there are more trades to come. So now, here's your new Rockets starting 5. So you got John Wall at the point, Oladipo at the 2, either Eric Gordon or Danielle House at the small forward position. And then you still got PJ Tucker, who appears to be unhappy. And you have Christian Wood at the 5 with Boogie Cousins and Tate and a few other guys coming off the bench. So this starting 5 that you have right now, compared to what you could have had going forward, in my opinion, is a major disappointment. It continues to show me that this organization is more about saving money financially than putting the best product on the court for the fans to enjoy. Not getting enough assets in the future going forward because those draft picks aren't as good as they look on paper based on where they're going to be in the draft. Because in the NBA draft, you normally get maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 guys that pop. So far this year, the only good rookie out of the entire rookie class, and it's early, has been LaMelo Ball. Wiseman has shown some possibilities in Golden State of being a good big man. He's very young, but nobody else outside of those 2 guys to this point have really made an impact on their basketball teams. The draft is getting younger and younger. Players eventually will be coming straight out of high school again, so you will have much less film on them. It will be much more of a gamble going forward. So I'm really disappointed in the picks today. I'm interested in you guys' comments. Once you view the video, please leave them in the comments section. I will be happy to reply to those. If you have some comments or likes at this time, we'll definitely tackle those as well. But those are my thoughts on the trade today. Looking at the Rockets side of it, what they got, what I think they could have gotten, and what they have failed to do as an organization. And unfortunately, for the fans of this city that so love the Rockets, it could be a long time before this team gets back to becoming a championship contender. They may battle for the playoffs at the end of this season, maybe in that play-in tournament at the end of the season. Hopefully the locker room chemistry will get better. with James Harden out the door. But those are my thoughts. That is my breakdown of how I thought this trade went down. The motivation for the trade seemed to be more financial than getting the best players available. And all in all, I believe it's a very, very sad day for Houston Rockets fans. Not because James Harden left. I think we all agree it was time for him to go. But for what the Rockets got in return compared to what they could have had in return, for me, was a major, major disappointment. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Short show, short and sweet. We'll have more Rockets talk throughout the season, probably throughout the next coming weeks as perhaps more deals go down. Perhaps PJ Tucker may be the next guy out the door. We don't know about Eric Gordon. He has a pretty high salary. They may be looking to move him as well. Both of those guys may want to finish their career somewhere else rather than on a rebuilding team. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Once again, James Harden traded to the Brooklyn Nets. The Rockets get 3 players. They get 4 picks and 4 picks that I honestly don't think in the long run will amount to much of anything for the Houston Rockets. So thank you guys for joining the show. We will see you next time.